Guys, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. If you're new to my channel, I hope that you head down there, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, get notifications when I'm live. And yeah, join me when I make live videos and or post videos, but mainly I do live. And don't forget to like my videos and share them. So today I figured I'd come on here because I've gotten a few questions since I started my blocks for a swap that I am in on what is string piecing and how is it done, and what is crumb block piecing. So I'm going to show how that is done as well. We're going to start with string piecing, and I am going to try to get this loaded so that I can see comments while I'm like right here. And then, yeah, I'm just going to walk you guys through. This is not a normal time that I would come on, but I have a migraine and I can't lay down any longer and I can't watch TV any longer. So this is my go-to thing to help me. So I'm up early because I can't sleep. So what is string piecing? Well, first of all, string piecing is when you take your tub of strings, and strings are all different shapes and size, well, and lengths, I should say. And so when you have and been saving and putting aside strings, this is what they look like. It's just strips of fabric, various widths, but a string would be anything considerably under 2.5 inches. Once you get to 2.5 inches, it's something that is normally in quilts size wise. The size varies, but below under 2.5 inches, I would say would be considered a string or for strip piecing. String piecing can be done with any fabric. It can be done with whatever, and you're just trying to use up all your pieces. And or I have also seen it and been told that people do this all the time, but I've seen pictures of strings as in the selvages, the selvage edges off of quilts. So I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just using strips from my little tub here, my shoebox filled, and it's called string piecing because I'm using the small ones. I pulled out some small ones, just a whole bunch of black, white, and gray, so that I can put these together and make myself string blocks. And I'm going to show you string blocks first, and then we will move on to crumb block and how a crumb block is put together and how you would go about putting it together with such awkward pieces and so on and so forth. So we're going to start with strings, and I'm going to show you how it's done. I'm going to bring the camera closer so you won't see my face, but you will hear me. Well, you probably see some of my face, but I'm going to bring the camera closer so you can see how I execute making a string block. So first I'll say hi to everybody that's here. Hi, Kim. Hi, June. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Maggie. So I'm hoping this helps with those of you who have questions about string piecing and crumb blocks, but we'll do the string piecing first. So let's just come closer and I will show you guys some string piecing. Hi, Tanya. Hi, Maggie. All right, so let's turn this here so you guys are facing the machine. I'm gonna zoom in just a little. There we go, so you guys can see. And darn it all, I forgot to put that whole volume thing down again, and I can't do it now. All right, so here we are. Let me tip the camera down this way some for you. So I have various strings here. They're all probably like 10 inches in length, close to. So, and I have a couple pieces of each one just so that I can show you how this is done. And maybe if I back away just a little, you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to lay them in a visible order. There is technically no rule to this. You can sew whatever you want next to each other. But I am personally going to stick all these pieces and lay them out like this, just like so. And I am going to sew them together in some kind of visually pleasing manner. So I'm just going to separate just a little like this. Go, hey, I want that there, that there. You know, and so on and so forth. It doesn't have to be anything specific or perfect, but this is what I'm going to do. So here's my order. Let me unzoom. Oops. Let me unzoom so you can see. I have them in an order. And I'm just going to hold them right here because it's going to get bigger as I go. And I'm just going to start with piece 1. And I have quite a few of each piece because, well, I was just going to kind of guesstimate the size here. I think I want to put this one here instead, though. And that one there. You know, just however you want them. And they could be strings, like I said, any size under 2.5 inches, honestly, is considered a string in my book. I don't know how anyone else would say, but I'm just doing my own thing. And this is just for fun, for video sakes. Okay, so let's go back to the machine. Focus, focus, focus. I have to tell this thing to focus. All right, that might be close enough. Or not, that might be too close. I can't do this without blocking the camera, guys. Right there, that should be good. So I'm gonna take piece 1, and then I'm gonna take one of these other ones, and I'm gonna stick them right sides together, just like any piece of fabric that we do. And I'm just gonna sew them together. Now with strings, I would say use an iron, but unfortunately I don't want to get up and down for an iron, and I don't have one next to me. So I'm going to go ahead and finger press towards the dark on this because I broke thread. So now I have 2 strings put together so far. Okay. And now I'm going to grab my next piece, which I chose this color, but I think I'm going to put that one over some. I'm like trying to get this in a visual pleasing order, which I say is the best. I'm going to grab another one. I'm going to put it right sides together, and I'm always lining up the top because that's where, when I trim my block to create a block, is where I'm going to start, is the more straighter edge. So I'm just lining them right sides together and sewing them down. And I'm going to just move pieces out of the way as I go. And now I'm going to press this towards my darker color with my finger. And I'm using my other hand to push the seams open. So now I have 3 pieces together. And I actually do not like this very close up like that, guys. So I'm just going to zoom back out. I think you guys get the hang of how the sewing machine works. All right, so now I'm going to grab another piece, and I'm going to line my more flatter edge up at the top. I don't want to, unless I'm making something specific, I'm not going to stagger them. So I'm just going to line this one up. And now if you're using long strips, full length strips, there's also a cool part about doing that. You can sew a bunch of strings together. If you're using full length strips, sew a bunch of them together in the full length, you know, and then you can actually trim them when you go into the cutting on point so that the strings end up differently. So just for further note, and I'll show you when I'm cutting what I mean. All right, so I'm gonna grab my next string. I'm lining up my more flatter edge up here, and you could probably chain piece all these together. I am not sewing anything smaller than 3/4 of an inch. The one that I just sewed on just so happens to be 7/8 of an inch. So it's almost there. All right. So here's 4 together now. Or 5. 1, 2, 3, 5 together. Now I'm going to grab the next one in my little stack here of my wonderful pleasing order. And I have no idea how big my string thing is going to get. Just sewing them together, and the size block will determine as soon as I'm done sewing a bunch of these together. This one will go a lot faster than the crumb block will. So here's the next one on there. All right, now I'm going to add another one. And it doesn't matter if there's similar colors. This one has sparklies in it, so being next to the last should be very easy to tell which strip is what. So there's another one. And then here is another, and then I'll have one more sew on the end. And it's looking like I'm going to end up with like a 5 or 6 inch block out of this. Or I can make strips if I wanted. So I'm going to add another one on here. I'm just showing you guys for video's sake. I'm not making anything specific. Now, if I had enough inches in this, I would be able to go to like 10 inches. And let's see how long this is. Maybe I can just make a small block while I'm here. 1, 10. Oh, I do have 10 inches worth. So let me keep adding because I'm at 6 inches now. I'll just keep adding and I'll start from my beginning one again. And I'm just going to keep adding so that I can have a 10-inch block. That way it's a lot easier when I go to trim it down. So I'm going to add another white string in here to separate the two. And if you wanted to chain piece, you would just take the next two. So take 1 and then 2, and then sew these together. And then to chain piece, you would just grab another 2 pieces. It doesn't matter which 2 pieces as long as you are putting them together like so. And I'm going to put the white on the bottom with this because this will be my next color anyway. Are you kidding me? Can't really put the smaller piece on the bottom. Well, at least you shouldn't, because you can't see it and it doesn't want to grab the next. That's the only thing about using smaller on the bottom. So say I was to chain piece a whole lot of them. Then I would just snip them apart and add them in 2s and 2s and 2s and 2s and 2s until they're all added. So this time I'm just pressing like this. Then I would sew the next 2 together with the first 2 and so on and so forth if you're chain piecing the whole lot. And I'll check comments in a minute, guys, between the 2 different blocks that I'm making. Just give me a minute. So this way I had 2 and 2. So I'm going to put the other 2 on top. And again, you would chain piece a whole lot of them if you're just doing scrappy. And scrappy means nothing really matches. It's just whatever strings from all sorts of projects. If you're trying to keep it consistent using all reds in one block or all greens or all blues, then you would, you know, have to put it in some kind of order that you like. I'm just throwing some stuff together, but I'm using black, white, and gray. So technically it's controlled scrappy. I am controlling the colors that end up where they're ending up. So then if you have string piece and you put a bunch of these together, then you just sew them on. And this should hopefully end me at 10 inches, hopefully. We'll see though. I'm just sewing it together. I'm gonna finger press it to the right, and I'm gonna see how many inches I'm at. Almost one more string will hopefully get me to my 10 inches. Actually, probably 2 more strings because I'm taking away a 1/4 inch. So I could have chain pieced the last 2 on here. And pressing will also help, like I said. Almost one more. Just throw this last one on here. And then I'm going to turn my iron on and press this whole thing before I trim anything. And then I'll show you guys how to trim it. All right, so here is one piece that'll make 1 block so far that I'm not doing anything with. I'm just showing you guys how it's done. So let me turn my iron on while I read some comments. And I'm not going to show you guys ironing because there's no point right now. All right, let's see. Where did I end? I ended with Tanya. Okay, let's see. We got Suburban, Deb C. I said June. We got Teresa, Misty. All right, guys. Hello and welcome to me making some string and crumb blocks. So I'm going to take this over and press it real quick as soon as that iron is hot, and then I'll show you how I would trim this and give you on if you did use full length strips. So I should only be over here for just a second. Just making it nice and flat, making sure all my seams are pressed pretty and open, or well, to one side. I press them open, there's no point. Too many tiny pieces. Okay, so let's turn this way. I'm going to throw my string box over here now out of the way. Add my strings to it that are left. I'm going to turn the camera now, guys, to right here. So we're going to take a pretend here for just a second. And I'm going to say, imagine this as one really long strip, okay? Just pretend. Now, if this was a really long strip, what you could do is, I'm also going to use an 8.5 inch ruler here, okay? I'm going to be cutting this as a 10, but if it was a really long strip, you could take a ruler, and if, you know, you had more to whatever size you wanted your blocks to be, you need to be taller so that you can hit point to point on a ruler. Then you would go and just cut them out like this, and then you would have sideways or on point, you know. Let's see if I can't hold it there. Just take your other ruler and you would have on point blocks like that, okay, just like that. But I'm not doing that. And you could also do it other ways by lining it up on a 45-degree angle and cut like so, but I'm not doing that because I don't have a full length strip and there's no point. I'm going to line this up now on a line, just like so. I'm going to straighten this up. Everything looks to be right here. And look, I don't even have 10 inches. I'm kind of shy right here on one strip. But I'm going to pretend that that is straight only because I'm trying to be in a hurry sort of today. And that'll get caught in the seam allowance. And I can also put a border around this if I wanted to. I'm going to trim right here. All this excess away. I don't need that. Turn my whole block around. And I'm going to line it up with my cutting mat. Or you can use a 10-inch ruler, which I do not have here. So just doing it this way. And I'm going to cut this way. I'm just cutting a 10-inch block for video's sake. I can just put it in my drawer of blocks to be used in anything. And now I'm going to do the two sides. right here, line them up. Everything's lined up, so the rest of my block, oops, sorry, the rest of this whole entire block, even though I have, see that little notch out right there? That'll get caught in my seam allowance. It wasn't as long as the rest of the pieces. Just going to line these up. I'm also going to line up my straight edge down here on a line, because I didn't have exactly 10. It went over by like 1/8 of an inch, honestly. I'll line this up and cut right here. Trimming away that. So that side's nice and straight. Turn it around one more time. Lining it up on my line. So now I'm not only lined up on the side, but I'm lined up on the bottom. I'm just going to put this right here. Like that. Trim away any excess. And now I have myself a 10-inch string block. Like this. There are all sorts of options that you can do with your string piecing. Like you can snowball the corners, which will give you an on-point block. So if you snowballed the corners, it would sit however you want it to sit. Okay. Or you can make strips out of this and sew a bunch of different strings together in strips, or however you want. So this is string piecing right here. This is how it ends up. Bunch of strings together. You would not have this little piece missing out, but that's okay. Like I said, it ends up in the seam allowance. And I thought all my pieces were about 10 inches. They looked like it, so that's the only reason why I use them. So here is our string. So I'm going to take this up so you can see me. And turn it around. All right, guys. So, string blocks out of the way. Now you guys know that's how string piecing is done. Again, you can do it with any strip or strings that are about under 2.5 inches. 2.5 seems kind of big, but there are lots of things that you can make, like log cabins and so on and so forth with strings. So, and they can be made with 2.5-inch strips. It's the same thing. It's just called strip piecing that way, but string is when they're smaller and they can be done with the salvages, leftover pieces. You can cut 2.5-inch strips in half, which is 1 1/4 to 1 1/4 strips out of, that's how it would be. So here's that. So now we're going to move on to crumb blocks. Now, crumb blocks is a totally different experience. Crumbs are these, and I'm going to open the bag right here. I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment so that you guys can see. Crumbs are anything that is shaped, and they can either be strings, because strings fit in, but crumbs are also weird and odd shaped pieces. So you can have like triangles, or let me see if I can't dig further in here. Squares. I even have some big squares in here because some stuff was fussy cut out for specific projects, which I'm not going to be using that, but I have triangles, little pieces. Let's see. I know I have more funky wonky stuff in here, but it's just a little mixture of all sorts of shapes. And like, see, I wouldn't obviously use all that kind of stuff in crumb piecing, gets trimmed off, but these are just anything that I have that's, see how this is shaped funky and wonky. And I do have a lot of strings in here, which is quite odd, but I also have lots and lots of squares and leftovers, pieces that were pieced together. My most recent project added to this bin. They could also be squares, like these were probably supposed to be 2.5, but they accidentally got cut smaller. Just things you want to keep, like weird shaped stuff. So I am going to show you how crumb piecing is, and crumbs are the small misshaped pieces that nobody really wants to keep, but it's a cutoff, so I kept it, and this is going to be what I use. So for now, I'm just going to throw the most of this up in here, and then I should just press this piece out. I don't know why I don't. Just put it with my extra block pieces, but maybe something was different, and that's why I threw that in there. So I'm going to start with some of these crumbs and just stick them right here next to me and grab from my little pile. I'm not even going to use the bag, just going to use what's right next to me. So I have this pile next to me. Crumbs. Let's put some crumbs together. So this is the difference with crumb piecing. Okay, so we're going to come down here. This. And crumb piecing is done. So I'm going to take, I don't know, I'll start with this tomato piece as like my build. And I'm going to take a strip or crumb, and I'm going to just put it on here like so. It's not very straight, so I'm going to find the most straightest edge possible, but it does not have to be. I'm just going to attempt to find the straightest edge possible. I'm going to put it under here. I'm going to sew it on. Now, the best way to do this is probably to iron, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to trim like that. And I still have more here, so I'm going to grab another piece and sew it onto that. So here's another square, sewing it on like that. I'm just finger pressing. Normally you would iron. Ironing is very important. So if you have like a little iron, I don't have one of those, but if you had a little iron, that's what you would use. All right, so I'm going to take some of these little crumbs here, like they're all different sizes, and I'm going to start sewing a couple of them together to create bigger pieces. And I just would say have fun with it, honestly. I like these two together. Doesn't really matter what you're putting together as long as you're building on your original piece. So I'm going to add a couple of these little pieces together. And there's enough right here to add this on this way now. And you just kind of build up until you have a block. I'm adding that. Now this is enough to go on here. Like I said, this is just like building blocks, except for fabric. All right, so now that's something. Press it out of the way. When it's not straight, you can either take a long piece with a straight edge and sew it on like this, which I'm going to do right now. Oh, I can't because I don't have a funky foot on here. So I'm going to take a ruler to this real quick, and I'm going to straighten that edge up. I'm just going to reach over the camera and block it for a second, guys, so that I can trim this edge up and make it nice and straight. So here's a nice straight edge now. So I'm going to take another bit of crumbs, and this one's a ton sewn together already. I'm going to sew them onto it. And all I'm doing is just building and building and building and building until all these little crumbs are sewn together. So now I have these pieces. These two match, and I'm going to try to make them this length. And I'm almost there, so I'm just going to sew these on like this. And now it has become sideways. And now I'm to the point where I probably should press. So I'm going to show you right now, and then I'm going to straighten an edge. I'm going to press this real quick, though, out of the camera view. Here's my pressed piece so far. And I am just literally making a mess. So I'm going to trim this side right here. I'm just going to use a ruler because it makes it easier. I know you guys can't see down here, but I'm doing it anyway. And I'm not saving any of these little dinky cutoffs. There's no point saving that stuff. That just goes in the garbage. All right, so now I have another straight edge. Actually, I'm going to straighten this edge up too. You can just do this if you have a little cutting mat and iron next to you. All right, so now I have 2 straight edges, and I want to add something fun. So I'm going to dig through my little pile here and find, let's see. Here's one of those curved pieces. You can see it's curved. I'm going to add this to this side. I'm going to come up just a little bit. No idea what half of this stuff is from, but as you saw, some of my pieces were in my block swap blocks had this fabric in it. So, all right, so now you can either take scissors and make your line, or you can cut with the iron. Cut with the rotary cutter. Just gonna use scissors because I have 2 straight edges now. Let me try to find. Let's use this triangle. So now I'm just going to add a triangle right here. It doesn't have to be equal center, anything. Just needs to be on your 1/4 inch. And this is a bias piece, like totally stretchy. Okay, I'm going to fold that back. Trim off my little curve right here because, oh well. Trim off what would be a straight edge right here. And so if I wanted to just add off this triangle only, I could. And watch this. So you can see that I have a curve and a triangle. I'm just going to add to the triangle so that I can create a piece. So say I want this right here on this edge. I need something longer, just a little bit. Aha, that one's a little bit longer. So now I can build in this corner if I want. I can either straighten this seam or I can go curve, which I'm not going to. I'm probably going to straighten it. Real quick. Let me just run it out of my way right here. Okay, hold on 2 seconds. I'm gonna put that out of the way. And now I have this straight edge. So now I can add a bunch of pieces to it. So I already have some sewn together. Just going to grab from the pile, line them up on here. So when it comes to crumb piecing, you're really literally just sewing random pieces over and over, making a disaster. So now I want to say add to this side or this side. So what I'll do is make a nice straight line. Here, add to this side, and I'm going to start with all these little crumb pieces and make something out of them. I'm just sewing them together and having fun. And now I'm kind of just chain piecing some pieces together to create kind of just a string out of all of them. Doesn't matter what you're sewing together because crumbs do not match. Strings you can make into one thing, but with crumbs, unless it's all scraps from one specific project, and then it's not as crummy as the word crumb block. So now I'm going to take these and sew them together so I can create a strip. Like this. And I know I'm not really looking at comments today, guys, but I'm really trying to just do this quick. I have a migraine, so I'm trying to just get it done, if that makes any sense, and show you guys how this is done, since several of you have asked. I think this is as long as that is, so I can cut that sideways more. I'm going to press this real quick. Be right back. So now I'm going to add this. Oops, let's move this out of the way. To this side right here. So I'm just going to go on here just like this. Just place it however I want. I'm going to take it over to the iron real quick, and then I'll show you what it's looking like so far. And if you have a size in mind, you would just keep adding until you reach that size or goal size. So say I want to make an 8.5 inch block. I'm just going to keep adding onto this until I have an 8.5 inch block. Hi, Quilting for the Soul and MJ. I just saw you guys on there. I'm not really totally looking at the comments, but sort of. I mean, I'm catching them here and there. Let's see. What if I want it to be like this? So see, here, I'm going to put this down so you can see the cutting area. You see where I am down here? Okay. Oh man, this doesn't want to stay today. Okay. So say I'm right here, and I want to trim all this, and I want it to equal, and I still want a seam. So here's a nice straight edge now for me to work off of. I'm going to still use that piece. I'm going to make a straight edge this way. So that I can build off of this. Make a straight edge this way. I'll save this piece because I can build off of that. I'm going to make this edge straight as well. Okay, so now I'm going to keep building. So here's what I got so far. It's just crumbs all being sewn together. Come back over here. If you have 8.5 in mind, I definitely need to go a lot more than this before I get close. So I'm going to add a big piece on this side right here. Just like this. And with strings, a lot are on the bias. So you have to be very, very, very careful when you're sewing these. Be nice if my blade was open. Now let's sew some more of these pieces together. Or I could just find a long piece to add to it. So I have a string here, but it probably got thrown out of the actual string bin because it's not straight. And this one's kind of tiny, so I think I'm gonna go to the iron real quick. I do recommend lots and lots of steam when using these small pieces. So again, I'm going to trim off things that I don't want. I'm blocking the camera, I know, but so now I have even more odd angles, and I'm just going to keep building onto these weird angles. Some of these pieces are wrinkled as can be, but I'm just going to keep sewing them. So string piece or crumb piecing takes a lot longer than string piecing. It requires a lot of patience to keep building as you go. A lot of different thinking about it and moving things around and adjusting. Make a little one. Honestly, I probably would not normally break thread the whole entire project either. I would probably just sew them together and keep sewing them together. You can do whatever angle you want, build off things, and so on and so forth. So say I have all this and I want to be wide. I'm just going to add this to it now, to this side. And it's not really a straight seam. I prefer with this 1/4 inch foot, I'm using it because it's on there. So I've made a little bit wider piece now. And I'm going to add that to it as soon as I straighten it up real quick. Let's straighten it a little. So I have tons and tons of pieces. I can just keep going. And everything is 100% scrappy. So I want to add to this one too, this leftover piece. Just making some squares real quick. Get it to a certain width. Make sure they're both about the same, and then add these together like this. So I'm going to straighten up 2 edges real quick. Not even using a ruler. Now, see, now I'm going to sew all these together real quick. So now I have a nice long funky piece. So let me press this real quick so that I can trim it straight. My long funky piece to add to one of the sides. I'll lay it over here out of the way. And I have now created myself pretty much a 2 and 3 inch strip actually. But I did not cut it straight. So now I'm going to add this to this side over here because I think that's where it'll look the best. Line it up. Now I'm going to go press this and then trim it. Okay, so this is what I have so far. Now I'm going to straighten up this angle so that I can add to this side. I'm going to use a ruler for that, just so that it is nice and as straight as I can get it to add the next piece to. I'm also going to straighten up this edge because I'm almost to the size that I need just by looking at it, or the size that I'm looking for at least. So here's what I got so far. Now I'm planning on adding a little bit down here. So let's find a triangle or something I can add down here. That's not going to be a triangle, but we're going to add it anyway. Right here on this edge. And I'll add another piece to it. So this is crumb piecing. So I'm gonna straighten this up with just a pair of scissors for now. Like so. Add another piece to the end right here because I just want to create a nice triangle down here. And press it with the iron so it's flat. So here's my funky piece so far. Create a triangle down here at the end. Like this. Make sure that I'm on the cutting mat. Sorry I didn't face the camera down. I don't have to move the camera a bazillion times, guys. And if you have a piece that you want to keep and you have a piece sewn to it, just yank that off or whatever. All right, so now I have a piece that I couldn't reach to cut for a nice straight edge. So now I'm just going to hook a bunch together real quick and complete that side. See? So now I just have to add to this side right here a nice triangle, and I'll have a pretty darn big block star. So move that out of the way and just create some more pieces. All these little things, I'm going to just hook these together now. And create, I don't know how long this needs to be, but it needs to be long enough. So this is how string piecing works. You just kind of, string crumb block piecing. Just kind of keep adding until you get to the size that you're looking for. It's a lot of side sewing, you know, you're just sewing a bunch of pieces and getting them together to about a certain size and then sewing those to something and so on and so forth. I'm going to cut this off because this can now become a separate piece that I'll add to the side of this. So you can really have lots of fun with this if you're new to crumb piecing, which I'm assuming some of you are, especially the ones that asked me. So now I have that, but I want this to be wider. So I'm going to add this to it. And if your seam, see how if I line those up, they're not the same. You can either trim that straight or you can sew it. I'm not using my open foot. I'm using an enclosed seam foot, so I have to be a little bit cautious of that. But all right, so that's now wide enough for that. Oh, that's perfect. I'm going to make this a little bit more straighter just from sitting here. I'm going to sew this one to this now. And I should have a nice long piece. So if I have that piece, which is nice and long, let's see if it's long enough. It's almost long enough, so let's add a little bit more to it. Let's see. Oh, this will work. Let's add something to that. See, so I'm kind of just putting anything and everything together to make it bigger. You know, so I'm just adding to it over and over until everything is big enough. Like this. So is that big enough? Ah, good enough. So I'll just add this on here. I'm going to take this over to the iron. What the heck happened here? Uh-oh, sorry guys, I don't know what... All right, I don't know what happened there. Maybe it got overwhelmed or something, I don't know. I'm going to press this real quick. Make sure it's nice and flat. So I have this piece now to add to right here, which I'll still need to add a little bit more sideways, but we're going to add this to it. Just straighten that edge up with my ruler. Make it nice and straight so I can add the two together. So here's this, and here's this. So I have a nice straight edge right here. Let's hook this one to it. And then I'll press this on and add just a little bit more because I'm getting pretty darn big here. And there's several ways that this can also be done. You can just keep adding until you have so many scraps it's like a top, you know, or you can make them by the block, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm just making it to where it's by the block. And all the scraps that you cut off can be used towards the next block, if that makes any sense. Now I'm going to trim right here nice and flush, and then add some more. Get it nice and straight. All right, let's find a way to make a nice big triangle. So I'm going to cut this piece in half. I'm going to have some fun here. Add to it. Make a nice straight line right there. And we're going to add to this to make a nice big triangle to add to the end. So I'm just going to start taking pieces now and adding it to this triangle. I know this is probably a weird time for me to be on. I'm never on in the morning, guys. But I just have to get some stuff done and get myself caught up. Ooh, here we go. Let's add this to here. Nice big chunk of piecing. And I can also take this over to the iron because I should be doing that, but I'm not. I'm going to add to this side. This is how crumb piecing works. Creating myself a nice big triangle right here on the end to add. I'm just going to keep putting things on it. So here we have so far this. And let's straighten up this edge over here. Put this one on right here. So this is a pretty big crumb, which could have gone into a different pile, but I didn't. So here is almost enough to be a nice big triangle. See how I'm doing this? And then I'll cut one side straight, which is like perfect. I'm gonna add this right here. Like I said, this bag is filled with all sorts of sizes. It's what I consider my crumbs. You guys probably have different size crumbs, but these are my crumbs. Okay, let's sew one more piece to this end so that I can have like the perfect triangle right here. Okay, I'm going to go press this on the iron real quick, and then I'm going to attach it right here to create my corner. So I'm going to trim this whole edge nice and straight. Back you guys up just a little because that way I'm not blocking the camera too much. So I'll still keep that right there. And that I'll toss. So here is mostly a triangle that I'm going to add to this about right here. And this should be enough for a nice big block. All right. So now I'm gonna go press it. I'm gonna take you guys over here because I have this nice big going. We're at the cutting area now. So here is my crumbs all thrown together into something. And then you can just take a ruler. You can lay it where you want, like this down here. I could put it right here. I could put it anywhere on here. So for now, I'm just going to, I guess I can make 2 blocks by adding. Cut right here off first because that's where I started. Let's see if I can't get bigger out of this. So like I said, you can make really big chunks if you need, or smaller. Let's just make a nice square out of this. I'm going to lay this on this line right here. Make sure that's crossing over. That's crossing over. Come right here. Not a big enough ruler, but I'm just going to be guessing. So I'm going to save this. I'll chop that off because that's too thin. I'm going to save this little piece right here towards the next set. So now I have a corner right here. I'm going to lay the ruler of choice on here, which is just 8.5 for now because I'm trying to make this video. So I'm going to save this piece because I'm going to keep adding to this. And lay this back on here like so. You could use whatever size you want that you're building to. And I'll use this piece as well, but I'll break this one off right here. So I have 2 pieces to use. And here is now an 8.5 inch crumb block. Nothing matches, nothing goes together. This is how crumbs work. You just sew them together, sew them together, sew them together over and over and over. So here's my block. And here are pieces to start the next one. So all I would want to do is trim off nice straight lines or just keep adding to it. So I could take this and add it to this side, you know, until this one is about the size of the block that I want. So this is how crumb pieces work. It's a lot of work, definitely. So if you're going to make a big, huge quilt out of all crumb blocks, and you're just going to make a ton of blocks like this, and you're just going to sash them with a solid color to bring them all together. So say you wanted to use white, since there's no white in here, white would bring all of it together, or black. There are quite a bit of black pieces. So I would say, you know, you can even use a green or a peach or a yellow or whatever you want. Bring them together, put some cornerstones, you know, have fun with it to bring all the blocks together. Or you can sew each individual block together and just have a really messy quilt like great grandma used to make, just out of all sorts of pieces like this sewn together. Nothing matches, you know. So this is how crumb piecing is. So there's my crumb block. Let me bring back over my string block so you can see the difference. We got string and crumb. I'm going to put it against me so that you can see it. So there's a string piecing. Here's a crumb block. So you can totally see the difference. Oops, stay. So those are the difference between the two. For those that were curious, this is definitely time consuming. Strings are less time consuming. Okay. And you also make another mess. You can see I have made yet another mess, but this is just my garbage pile. And then I would have wanted to take the time and sew all that together right there, you know. I mean, there's a lot of options when it comes to crumbs and strings. So just have fun with it. I just wanted to make sure I came on because I had literally several people ask me the difference. And if I can show how it's done. So again, that's string block. Strings are, like I said, anything under 2.5 inches, honestly. And if you cut the 2.5 inch strips in half, that's 1.25, which makes perfect strings. So you can make it from a jelly roll. Cut all your jelly roll pieces and sew all your strings together, because it's probably easier that way anyway. And you can do the whole width of fabric, and you can cut them to put them on point. Or to put this on point, you would just snowball the corners, and then you use the snowball corner parts to make half square triangles. So there's plenty of options. With this, I probably would not snowball any corners and make half square triangles, because there's so many tiny, I mean, look at these seams. There are so many funky seams coming together. I would not do that. These, I would just make a bunch of these, and I would sash them and put them into a quilt. So that's how this would work. But other than that, this is how they're together. This is crumb piecing. This is string piecing. So, and when it comes to my block swap blocks, I'll just hold one up. Mine is a bit of string piecing and crumb piecing. So it's a little bit of both. So just so that you guys know. So I kind of put both elements in one, but I made strings out of my crumbs. So that's how that works. So yeah, plenty of options, different things you can do. There's all sorts of different techniques. You can actually even pre-sew all this if you have batting. Take some batting and cuts, and you can sew these directly onto the batting, add the next piece, sew it on. I actually have yet to show that in a video, but I have done it because I've made a couple little side projects just for fun. But you can definitely sew crumbs and strings directly onto batting and do quilt as you go. So many options, guys, that you can find out there. For beginners, though, if you're a beginner, you probably don't even have enough scraps to do crumb blocks. It takes a while to build them up, but you can make crumb blocks out of making your own crumbs too. If you want to do something silly and fun, string piecing for beginners, this is essential. This one, you're just sewing strings together. You cut the block to the size you want. Bam, done. So definitely beginner friendly. So is crumb piecing, but you do have to get the angles cut, and for a beginner, I'm pretty sure that might be a little monotonous and time consuming, and you're going to get bored of it real quick and go, well, why am I not making the, I want to make something fun as a beginner. So, I mean, there's plenty of options out there on ways to do this, probably make it a little easier, but all you do is just sew a bunch of this together and have fun. So I wanted to come on early. I'm going to check the comments now so that I can get off of here after that. Yes, definitely great for I Spy quilts if you're using all sorts of fabrics that was especially big prints and you chopped them up. Definitely good for that. I love you too. Okay, can you unplug the iron wire right there since I'm done with it? All right, let's see. I don't remember where I stopped it. I think I stopped at Teresa or Deb or Misty. Okay, somewhere right there. Are crumb blocks better done on foundation of some sort? You can do them on foundation paper or use, hold on, let me grab it. Wax paper. Or what is it called? It's the paper for cooking and baking. I just use wax paper because it's the same price. It's the same consistency to me. I don't know, wax paper can be used in the oven, but you can also do crumb block piecing on wax paper. So then you just peel it away, or newspaper or magazine page. I've showed in previous videos in the past being done on pages from a magazine. I had a Vogue magazine or something, and I used to cut a bunch of pieces at a certain size, and I just started crumb piecing onto those. It is so old in my videos, you would probably have to type it into the search bar to get it, because if you go to videos, you only see a year's worth. So, and I've been doing this for 3 years, so there's lots and lots of videos. I could sell my scraps on eBay. Well, I'm getting ready to make a stack of stuff to sell, so I don't think it'll be scraps, but I know you can. I have a friend that I trade with. We get together once in a while and sew and trade scraps. That's awesome. I said hi to Quilting. Hi, Linda. Let's see who else we got here. Quilting for the Soul. I think I said hi while I was in. MJ walked in late again. That's fine. Sometimes it's just fun to sew without a plan. Exactly. You don't need a plan to make anything. If you know you want to put together a crumb quilt, obviously that is a plan to make a crumb quilt, and you know you want to sash it, or you know you want to do this, or you know you want to do that. That's perfectly fine. But sewing them together, there's no plan with how they go and what happens. MJ, I like the way you work, Tiffany. Organized and easy to follow. I made a few crumb blocks, mostly for tote bag panels. Hope your migraine goes away. Yeah. I've been actually nauseous with this one. Usually I don't get as nauseous, but yesterday was a horrible, horrible day. I thought it was just a complete stomachache, but it was definitely a migraine coming in because it hit me last night and it hit me hard. Let's see. I still have lots of scraps. I'm gonna get busy and use them up. I'm trying to use scraps and stash too. I feel like I can buy more fabric. Crumb blocks also make great. Okay, I already saw that. All right, guys. Well, I just want to come on, show how these two blocks are similar, but not. I mean, you're really using scraps to make these as well as just two different ways. These are easy to sew together. These take a long time. So, I mean, this went together pretty quick in the beginning and this took a while. So, it's definitely fun. Both ways are extremely fun. The things that you can come up with and make with them are extremely fun. You guys have seen me sew scraps together in many videos. I definitely do a lot of scraps, and I always use the scraps from the last of my projects. So when I make something, I use the scraps from it. And usually I make a specific side quilt out of the scraps from the main quilt. So I try to at least make something out of the scraps from every quilt. And these are all the scraps from the scrap quilts, if that makes any sense. And then they just get thrown in piles and I have fun with it. But I don't have as big of a scrap bag as you saw. I have more outside, but this is my indoor bag from the last, since I've been in this room bag. That's is all I have in here. And then out in the garage, I have big, huge tubs of it, which I didn't even show in my garage tour because it's buried on the other side and I didn't want to pull everything out, but I have big, huge tubs of scraps. So, and some of you know because you've won them in a giveaway. All right, so I'm going to get going. I'm going to show you guys that haven't seen on Facebook, those of you who are here on YouTube and are not on Facebook, I'm going to turn the camera around and show you. I finished the quilt the other night. I did not put the binding on it yet. Here is it just sitting. So that is what I finished the other night in an Insomniac episode. I just finished the quilting. I pretty much showed you guys again how I go all the way around. If I need to get myself out of the light. How I went around these. They definitely pop. And no, the quilt is not wrinkled. It's just hung funny. It's hard to hang it on a clothesline in the house. So some of them are really close. That's why I decided not to stitch in the ditch, because some are really close and some aren't. I think it really looks really cool. And there's my border. And it goes in and out, under and over, if that makes any sense. You'll have to watch the video to see how I did that. Trying to go really slow. It's really hard to. So let me back up so you can see the whole thing. I have a box in here, so I brought all my fabric in here to go through while I'm not feeling good. So there's that. It's done. Just needs a tag and binding, which I'm not in the mood to do. So, but that's the other night's Insomniac video. All right. Well, I thank you guys all for being here. Trying to use up stash by fabric. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. Awesome. Yeah. And this comments aren't keeping up. I can see comments here. So if I missed your comment, I'm sorry, guys. I'll probably go catch them all later when I feel like it. And I'm glad you guys all joined me and got to see the blocks and string piecing. some might say it's the same thing. You're just sewing scraps. So, I mean, I don't know. Crumb blocks is a disaster and string piecing is more consistent. So if that makes any sense. All right. See you guys later. And I'm glad you guys all joined me. Bye.